We've heard a lot of talk of future today, so I want to ask everyone, what is the future of work? It takes a lot of work to make all the ideas we're hearing today happen. I like to say the future of work is reinventing the places where things are made. I live in Detroit. I've been living and working in Detroit for 16 years, building ecosystems and making resources more accessible to those who need them the most. Detroit is typically known as the nexus of American design, invention, and innovation. Detroit is also known for many other things. You may have seen images of the city like this before. This is the Packard plant, a former luxury automobile manufacturing center. This is a view from the roof. These images are by a photographer based in Detroit. His name is Scott Hawking, and he's done a tremendous job documenting the signs and symbols of disinvestment, abandonment, and all the ways that people have said, I don't want this city anymore. This is yet another factory, abandoned, the Fisher Body plant. There are hundreds of images like this that I see every day. In addition to the built environment and the abandonment of the built environment, Detroit is also known as a place where people have stood up and questioned ethics of that nexus of design, industry, and invention. Some call it civil unrest, some call it rebellion, others call it riot. These photos are from the late 60s. It is truly an honor to be standing up here today. I'm just going to say it, I'm a white woman coming from a city that is majority black. It is an honor to share my stories and my hard work, and in an effort to relay some of this important issue to you, I discussed the issue with a friend of mine who's from Sierra Leone and a Detroiter, and she said to me this following statement. Detroit is a majority black city. There are people living here who kept the lights on in the city when everyone left. It is not a blank slate. Work with us. And when she says everyone left, she's referring to something you may know as white flight, or a very serious point in time where people that looked like me left the city. I'm going to show another series of photographs from another photographer based in Detroit. Her name is Corinne Vermeulen. And some of these are challenging, and they ask really difficult questions about the communities that were left to survive and forge for themselves when everyone left. So, how did communities and families come together and make do when the city went into bankruptcy? And there was an enormous mortgage foreclosure crisis. Physical mobility. A city that's nearly 240 square kilometers, how do people get from point A to point B when there is unreliable and often non-existent public transportation? Social mobility. I think this is making global headlines, but our school system is one of the corrupt and broken examples of how education collapses. How do our young people expect to find access to opportunity? Food, safety, security. When the systems aren't there to support you, how did communities come together and rethink food production and manufacturing? Basic utilities. You've also probably all heard about the Flint water crisis. There are dozens of examples before then where communities were completely cut off from water. How do you survive? I think all of this is helping us wrap our heads around the fact that people are truly the center of our universe. The built environment is important. The opportunity is important. The idea of transformation and change and progress and innovation, all very important, but only means as much as you put the weight of people are at the center of our universe. In putting people at the center of our universe, we must improve access to resources, access to information. We have to work extra hard to build a common language that brings people together to better collaborate and work together and make some of these really big, dreamy ideas a reality. And how these things combine is how we reinvent community and rethink new economies for the future. So, to continue my statement from before, the future of work is reinventing the places where things are made through co-design. There are some really wonderful programs happening in Detroit that I think are exceptional in their embracing of what was, our history, our assets, small businesses, families, communities that have been innovating in the absence of so much, and how funders and philanthropic interests come together and collaborate around a shared vision to lift up these businesses. And these are examples of the New Economy Initiative. I've personally been involved in the development of a lot of alternative spaces, maker spaces, hacker spaces. We've heard a lot about these type of awesome experiments today. This is one in Detroit's Eastern Market, Omnicore, Pony Ride. And what comes out of these spaces? Products, beautiful products, sunglasses, Homes eyewear, reclaiming wood from homes set for demolition, modular furniture, the Floyd leg, utilizing local manufacturing, smart design. Beautiful objects are really important, but I think talking about balance, the product and the process. A beautiful product is just as important as creating a beautiful experience, like bringing elders and young people together in a church basement to exchange knowledge about basic electronics or technology. Incubating new social models, business models like my design firm, The Work Department, a women-led, woman-owned social impact studio. And suffice to say, it takes a lot of work to implement these new ways of working. And I'm excited, 1,800 people in the room, that it's going to take all of us and beyond. In the TED Talk style, I'm going to share 3 wisdom learnings from my experience in Detroit, and I share them through a frame that is very much a hybrid lens. And I think in society, we are often forced to put ourselves in a binary or accept a polarity, private, public, abundance, lack, access, barrier, the list goes on. But I like to think I'm doing a pretty good job of combining a lot of those and really thinking of the synthesis or the balance between things that are typically polarized. So, in the beginning, the number one wisdom that I've gathered from working in Detroit for 16 years is you must always begin by listening, and that collaboration is truly the heart of the matter. I borrow this statement directly from a partner organization, Allied Media Projects, whom I've been working with for many, many years. And through their work with the Allied Media Conference, they've brought hundreds, thousands of people together in Detroit from across the United States for over 18 years. Technologists, community organizers, government officials. And when these people come together, they listen, and they tackle some of our most complicated social issues through co-creation, co-design, co-dreaming, you name it. It's beautiful. I recommend it. In these spaces, we lift up youth, and we incubate leadership of unconventional and innovative forms. For example, a project that has grown out of the Allied Media Projects is a resident-led neighborhood revitalization project where residents are now leading the visioning and co-design of their neighborhood in Detroit. Again, we always lift up our youth as part of the planning and co-design process. And this image here is young people, a workshop I facilitated literally 2 weeks ago, planning a local public park. We also embrace lots of different kinds of data. Everyone loves data. We love numbers. I love numbers. but really think about different modes of communication and creation, and that not everyone is at the same literacy level. Not everyone can fill out a survey. Not everyone's online. In fact, nearly 40% of the city of Detroit is offline. How do we continue to gather insight? So when we begin by listening, we're really set to start to understand that innovation takes time. And I get frustrated when I talk about, or when I hear people talking about innovation zones and catalysts. I mean, truly, the number one aspect of innovation is that it actually takes quite a bit of time. In working with a partner organization in Detroit, we've kind of come around a consensus that we think it grows in a spiral. So when you put listening at the center, you start to learn, you make, and you advocate. And this keeps going on and on and on. And I have a lot of mathematical visions about this, but you can talk to me afterwards if you want to know more. An example of how this spiral goes into action is actually a project that was born, again, out of the Allied Media Conference. And it was a peer-to-peer mesh networking technology. And here at the conference, we led the process with a workshop called Every Network Tells a Story. And from that point, we were able to scale across the United States with community groups of all different ages, generations, cultural backgrounds. So a workshop I did at I-Beam in New York, to Red Hook, where these networks performed in response to Hurricane Katrina, Sandy, not Katrina, and to across the globe, so even in Dharamshala, India. And this scaling and this innovation that grows on a spiral is possible because we take a lot of intention and time to build tools to document the peer-to-peer sharing of information. Oftentimes these are analog to start, curriculum guides, tool books, things that are easily shared locally and globally. Through this documentation, communities across the world are able to replicate the technology that we built locally in Detroit. My favorite part of this particular project is how, through a multitude of co-learning experiences, all the different interests that were behind the scenes were able to tell their own unique story. So whether it was a foundation, our partners in Washington, the New America Foundation, or social designers and activists, or even the US government, who also underwrote the project. So, through the patience of going through the innovation spiral, the third lesson that I'd like to share is building bridges. And we're all here doing that today. But the idea of zooming in and then zooming out to strengthen both local neighborhoods, but build our global neighborhood. Looking locally in Detroit, we build relationships constantly, especially with Detroit parents, to help rebuild that fractured education system I was talking about earlier. And we do this because people are truly the center of our universe. We always facilitate collaborative, engaging conversations and workshops where people who are speaking different languages, not only literally different languages, but again, across cultures, across literacy barriers, and working really hard to make complex information more accessible to all people. And this was a workshop, again, just a couple weeks ago, using cellular structure as a metaphor to help deconstruct and demystify complex neighborhood organizational processes. And really working alongside our residents and our neighbors to understand how we could make some of these complex processes, often bureaucratic in nature, more fun and engaging. That's me. Is this, again, a recent workshop? And all this culminates in those tools I mentioned, peer-to-peer, open source tools that we share locally and globally. We begin analog because often our residents and our audience is only in an analog form, but I look forward to the future of ways we can digitize these and make them more interactive. more toolkits. I'm actually very surprised I'm out of time. This is a field guide to working with lots, a recipe book to treat vacant lots across the city of Detroit. Working with the Media Lab at MIT to explain basics of co-design. Looking forward into the future, standing here on this stage, working in Medellin, Colombia, where I've spent a lot of time, I'm really interested in how we can continue a dialogue around rethinking the future of work and how it can be more participatory, more engaging, and more innovative in the way that we synthesize and bring more voices into the equation. So, thank you so much for having me.